All right, welcome to another episode of the IBC Guys. I'm Dave, and joining us today is Paul Bunyan. And Paul Bunyan chopped down a lot of trees. That what you did this weekend, right?
Oh, you never cease to surprise me.
That's
Yeah,
what you did.
I cut down a couple apple trees, wasn't it? Wasn't it like Abe Lincoln or George Washington cut down an apple tree
Oh,
or a
there you
cherry
go. That would have been a
tree?
good one. I was thinking the anti-Johnny Appleseed. Didn't he plant them? You're chopping them down. I don't know. I
Yeah,
got all sorts of nicknames for you. But your formal name is Mike. So Mike is joining us today too. So we got a kind of a refreshed episode today. Gonna recapture some ideas. But before we jump into it, we do this podcast for three reasons: get information out, to give applicable, implementable examples, and then to have the word spread. So if you would share, like, do all the things that would help us out. We do have a phone number 507-205-2284 if you want to give us a text. Gotten a couple. We'd like to get more. So give us a shout if you would. But that's the podcasty stuff. So, Mike, I said we're rehashing some stuff and talking through what we wanted to do for this episode. The idea was brought up. Our very first episode is called What is IBC? And if you listen to it or watch it, I think one could very readily tell it was our first episode. We're sitting shoulder to shoulder at your house. No idea. That's
that's
the
right.
thing. We really,
I forgot
yeah.
we were together
I would say
on
we
that one.
we would claim that we still really don't know what we're doing, but we know a little bit more than what we used to. And in that first episode, not in terms of IBC, we knew what we were doing in terms of IBC, but in making a podcast. So today the thought is, can we kind of go through what is IBC with a little more experience of doing a podcast under our belt? What's the feedback we've been getting? What are some highlights that maybe we can hit and say a different way? Because IBC has not changed. The ideology, the mentality has not changed. The version two aspect is to maybe re-talk through the same topic, say it a different way. The former educator, that's a pedagogical, that's a fancy way of teaching. That's a strategy. So
Wait, what's
pedagogical
that word again?
strategy. Pedagogy is how you teach someone. That's the formal term for it, pedagogy. So pedagogical is the theory of pedagogy. So I don't know. It's sounding I'm not meaning to sound fancy. That's just my background. Maybe I'm not
Well, it's
sounding fancy.
obviously
Maybe
evident to everyone who the smart guy on this podcast is. I never
oh,
even heard of that word before.
Mike, I fake it to make it. I am wearing a sweatshirt. I'm sitting in my office talking to my buddy, making up words. That may be a made up word. You don't even know. So, but all that to say, to repeat something is a strategy that's used in kind of making sure people understand the concept. So that's the thinking behind today. So we're just going to answer the simple question, what is IBC? Maybe hit it from a different angle and just talk through it. So simple episode. Hopefully it's helpful. Again, to hear the same thing, maybe said a different way is a great, great thing. So, Mike, our one and only question to answer today, and we can take this in a myriad of different directions. But I'm going to ask you to start off by answering the question, what is IBC?
IBC is a cash flow system, plain
And
and
I back
simple.
up even further. We're using an acronym, and I just realized I did this, Mike. I asked you a question and interrupted you. What a jerk. But IBC, we're using an acronym. Again, people say sometimes we're talking Chinese. What's the acronym IBC stand for?
Infinite banking concept.
All right.
That was pioneered or invented by R. Nelson Nash. He has a book out. He has several books out, a few books out. His first book, The Infinite, Dave looks like he's grabbing it here. The Infinite
I'm
Banking.
grabbing. If you're watching on YouTube, you've seen this before. It's the same thing. That's the genesis.
So his book is Becoming Your Own Banker, and then down below it, it says the Infinite Banking Concept. So IBC is a acronym for the Infinite Banking Concept, and it's quite simply a cash flow system. It is not an investment. And we've said before, this is one of the things that we get like all the time is people group together the idea of saving and investing. And they are very different. It's not an investment. So it's a cash flow system. And as an example, I've talked to several people, but typically people that are in the financial planning, let's just say kind of that arena or that sector, the investment sector, the investment industry, if you will. Right away they get into like, well, what's the rate of there is a guaranteed rate of return inside of this IBC system. Like, what's the rate of return? And oh my gosh, I can get you more than that in the market, in the S&P, and the Dow. If the Dow does this and the S&P does that, much awesome. But I always point to like, okay, you got a truck sitting out there in the parking lot. What's your rate of return on that? And they're just dumbfounded. Like, what do you mean? There's no rate of return on that. I bought the truck. I'm not investing that money. Exactly. So that is the difference. IBC is a cash flow system where you're running through the expenses or things that you are purchasing, be it homes, vehicles, vacations, college, weddings, things that are flowing through your household checkbook, if you will. It is not extra money per se that you would have left over and you're putting into a qualified plan, a 401k, a 403b, stocks, whatever. So they're very different. I do both, so it's not an either or, but they're different. So that was kind of a long answer to your question, but
why we're here.
It's a cash.
Yeah, it is a cash flow system.
I think today we wanted to go back again, like Dave said. We've gotten some calls, we've seen some comments, and it's like maybe we should kind of go back and revisit this again. Is exactly what it is. So I'm going to try to simplify it as best I can, and I'm going to go very simple, and then we're going to kind of peel back the layers, kind of like peeling back the onion, and get more and more in depth. Okay, so you've heard us talk about a truck example, a vehicle example, a car example. It doesn't matter what it is or the amount, but I'm a truck guy, so I always use a truck. And I used to say trucks are, you go buy a new truck, it's $50K. Now I don't think you can buy a truck for $50,000 anymore. They're more than that. So let's say a used truck or a really nice car or whatever. Again, it doesn't matter the amount, but everyone drives a vehicle. And even if you have a vehicle now, and I just got a new vehicle. Okay, well, over time, you're going to buy another vehicle. You're going to trade it in and get a new one. And you're going to do that multiple times throughout your life. So I use the example or the scenario of we are going to drive and purchase a vehicle over the next 20 years. Okay? So it applies to everyone that I know that would be listening to this. So not someone under 16, let's say, or someone 106 that's no longer driving, but everyone has a vehicle, has purchased a vehicle, is driving a vehicle, and is going to continue to do so for at least the next 20 years. Okay, so let's just make that assumption. So very simply, we're going to talk about two ways. And again, there's more, and we've done a previous podcast where we get into even more in depth where Nelson lays out in his book, multiple ways. But very simply, we're going to talk about two ways. And that's you financing that vehicle or you saving up enough money to buy cash. Sorry, saving up enough cash to pay cash for the vehicle. So the first option, we're going to finance the vehicle. Okay, so let's say it's a $50,000 truck. Let's assume interest rate is 4%. I think it's higher than that now, but it changes every day, every year. So let's just say that's 4%. If you go in and I'm going to finance a vehicle and I'm going to do this every 5 years, 4%, 60-month term, I'm going to pay $55,250, amortizing that over 60 months, again at 4%. So every truck over that 5-year period is going to cost you $55,250. 4 trucks at the end of 20 years is going to cost you $220K. Okay. And some change, $221K. All right. So option 1, we're going to finance vehicles. This is my plan for the next 20 years. And I'm going to buy a truck every 5 years for $221,000. Fair enough? So that's the first option. Second option is we're going to save up. What? Did you have a question there?
I said fair enough. You asked a rhetorical question that I just answered.
Well, maybe there's like a delay going on here. That was kind of funny. We are in a right now, kind of off subject here, but we have like severe storm, tornado warnings right now. Yeah. So if you see like, everything in the background just like, whisk away and my screen goes blank, that's probably what happened. Tornado coming through. It's not supposed to be till a little later, but anyway, I thought the delay was the storm. Okay. Off topic, but back to the IBC. So option 1 is you're going to finance your vehicles and it's going to cost you $221,000 over 20 years. Okay. Option 2 is you save up and pay cash for that $50,000 truck. So if you save up, let's say 10 grand a year, every 5 years, you will have saved up 50 grand. Again, I'm not talking, that money sitting in a bank and earning a little bit of interest or whatever, but just very simplistically, 50 grand cash every 4 years, you buy a truck, and over 20 years, you bought 4 trucks, just like option 1, and you spent $200,000 instead of $221,000. Okay. Everyone that's not doing IBC, everyone that I know of is doing one of those 2 things. Everyone. And I love talking with people when we get into the weeds on IBC. They're like, I want to see it laid out, Mike. I want you to put it on a spreadsheet. I want to lay it out. This is what I'm doing. This is my current financial situation. Let's map this out over whatever, 5, 10, 20, 50 years. It doesn't matter. I love talking with those people because it's very specific. And it's not, again, this isn't whether if the S&P does that or the Dow Jones does this. This is guaranteed. This is exactly what will happen. And again, if you're purchasing a vehicle, which everyone is doing, you're going to go down one of those 2 paths. Maybe 1 year you save up money and you pay cash or whatever. But when you're looking specifically at those 2 options, you're either using the bank's money or the financial institution or Ford Credit or whoever. You're using someone else's money and you're going to pay interest. And you're going to pay $221,000, or you're saving up your own money and you're using your money and you're going to pay cash and you're going to pay $200,000. So if we map that out and we said, okay, we're assuming you're going to drive a vehicle for the next 20 years and you're going to replace that vehicle every 5 years, you're going to do one of those 2 things. Do you want to end up at the end of that 20 years paying $200,000 or $221,000? Because everyone is doing one of those 2 options. And you may say, well, I don't know. I mean, I want to finance it because obviously if I do the cash option and only pay $200,000, I have to first save up that money where I can go buy a truck now and finance it. And yeah, that's the trade-off. You're going to pay a little more, and the reason why you're paying a little bit more is because you didn't save up the money, and so therefore you're kind of rewarding the bank because they already have the money. But everyone is doing one of those 2 options. The third option, when we talk about IBC, is at the end of that 20 years. Again, option 1 is you're out $221K, financing at 4%. Option B is you pay cash which is 200,000. At the end of 20 years on option 3 on the IBC is all that money comes back to you. So you're plus 220,000. Like, which one of those do you want to do?
So this is again why we're doing this. Let's recap that third option. I'm going to say it a different way. What you are saying is that you have the same outcome from options 1 and 2. You have your trucks. But this third option, not only do you have your trucks, but you have $220,000 available to you to be used. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
I think, and again, I'm asking a rhetorical question just like Mike did earlier. I knew the answer, but I want to drive home that point. That is in its essence IBC. You are monetizing the money you're already going to spend. And to Mike's point, the majority of people have cars. But the one or option 1 or option 2 are how 99% of people buy their cars. What we're offering is an opportunity to monetize, to make money off of that spending that's going to happen. And at the end of 20 years, you will have $220,000 available for you to use. Control, liquidity, and usage. You have those things available to you. So, to Mike's point, if you're doing it this way, it's hard to argue when you sit down and lay it out. I'm going to go back to your example, Mike, when you talk with people. When you sit down and lay that out, it's almost a no-brainer. What's difficult is to get past, at least this is my experience in talking with people. It's difficult for people to get past, and me included, the notion that one, I haven't heard this before. Two, who are these chuckleheads talking to us about this? Do I trust them? I get that. Maybe you don't, Mike, but I certainly get that. And it's valid. It's very valid. But three, is it really true? The third one for me is the easiest to kind of talk through because we can lay it out in an illustration and we can do the numbers. But going back to those three things, it's never anything I've heard of. Do I trust these guys that are telling this to me? And then three, does it actually play out numerically or objectively? And that third one's easy because we got illustration. But I got rolling, Mike. Going all the way back. The third option, $220,000 in your account after you've done what you were going to do anyway. That in and of its essence is IBC, the infinite banking concept.
Yeah. So again, let's summarize and then we can kind of go back and we'll lay out each one of those and kind of get into a little more detail. But again, to start at the very basic, option 1 is you're using the bank's money, you're financing your vehicle. That $221,000 is you've run through your checkbook. You're writing a check. You got a monthly truck payment. So you financed it. You drive that truck home right away, but you're paying a monthly payment every year. And at the end of that 20 years, you will have paid $221,000. You have zero in your checkbook.
Yeah.
And you have one used truck because you traded in the other 3 over the last 20 years. Okay, so again, option 1 is you have spent $221,000. And again, we'll go back and I'll show you where every dollar of that came from. But you've spent $221,000 and you have zero. Option 2 is you save up the cash. You pay $50,000 for a truck, a vehicle every 5 years. Over 20 years, that's $200,000. And you have the same amount as option 1. You have zero and you have one used truck. Option 3, using IBC, is you actually run through your checkbook $221,000 like option 1, but you have $221,000 still in your checkbook, whereas option 1 and option 2 you have zero. So you're $221,000 ahead. So do you want to end up zero option 1, spending $221,000? Do you want to end up zero in your checking account option 2? You only spent $200,000, so that's better. Or do you want to end up with $221,000 left in option 3, you spent 221, but you have 100% of that money back. Which one of those 3 do you want to do? Because you're doing it anyway. And again, going back to where we opened up, that I don't care whether you're a financial guy and I'm getting 12% in the market every year consistently, like I'm the greatest financial planner there is, you should put, awesome, do that. I would be interested maybe. But I still have to buy a vehicle. You still have to buy a vehicle. The financial guy still has to buy a vehicle. Warren Buffett, he's the greatest investor of all time, whatever. He's getting 0. Well, actually, he's doing this IBC, so he's got it figured out. But I mean, everyone is driving a vehicle. So let's go back and let's look at those numbers a little more specifically. Okay. So the first option, you're financing your vehicle, $221,000. Where are you getting this $221,000? Okay, here's where it comes from. A $50,000 vehicle financed at 4% interest on $50K, again, amortized over 60 months, is $55,250. Every bank. So if you're listening out there, you can use an amortization app. You can go online. You can go to your bank. Hey, if I were to get a loan, a vehicle loan, and you were going to charge me 4.0%, again, it may be higher or lower. It's probably higher right now. But if it was 4% over 60 months, what would be my total payment over 5 years? Everyone is going to tell you $55,250. That's what the numbers are. They don't change. Everyone has the same math. It's $55,250. So $55,250 times 4, again, 4 vehicles over 20 years. If you financed all 4 at that exact rate, that exact amount, it's going to cost you $221,000. Okay. And again, at the end of that, you finance your first vehicle, you're making monthly payments to the bank to pay it back. At the end of 5 years, whatever, you got 100,000 miles on the truck, and you trade it in. Trucks are now probably, $60,000. They give you 10 for your truck. We're just assuming every time is $50,000. Okay, and it's always going to be different. I understand that, but just to keep apples to apples, you do that 4 times. At the end of that 20 years, you will have paid off your 4th truck, and you have that used vehicle, but you have 0 in your checking account, but you've spent $221,000. Well, option 2, saving cash. I mean, that one's very simple. You save 10 grand a month. 10 grand a month. You'd buy a nice truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You save 10 grand a year.
Yeah.
For 5 years, you will have $50,000. You go buy your truck. Year 6, I need to save 10 grand a year because in 5 more years, I got to trade that truck in, put another 50 grand cash down to get my second truck. After 20 years, you've done 4 trucks. You spent $200,000. Same result as option 1. You only spent $200 because you saved that $21,000 of interest, but you still have 1 used truck and 0 left in your checking account. Using the infinite banking concept, and again, we're not going to get into the weeds exactly how, but it's the same thing. You're going to buy 4 trucks. Each one's going to be $50,000. You're going to buy one every 5 years. And it's kind of a combination of both. Is you're saving up the money first, like in the second option, paying cash, but you're using a financial institution's money that's charging you interest. So we're going to use 4%. So you're going to pay $55,250 for each vehicle. So at the end of 20 years, same as option 1, you will have spent $221,000. However, you don't have 0 left in your checking account like the first 2. You have roughly $221,000 in your account, which, like you said earlier, that sounds like a no-brainer. Like, I really got all of my trucks, those 4 trucks I got for free. If I spent $221,000, but I still have $221,000 left, like I got all my money back. I got to drive them all for free. That's the infinite banking concept.
It really sounds too good to be true. I mean, even listening to you now, we talk about this every day, Mike. But just sitting here, kind of being quiet and listening, it sounds too good to be true. But that's exactly what this is, and that's why we're doing this. We want to get this information out. And yeah, I don't want to get into the negative, but we've been accused of doing this to try and make money. We've been accused of being wrong, all those things. And that's fine. But when people sit down with an open mind and maybe a touch of humbleness and say, I don't necessarily know everything. Let's talk through this. We get to that third option and it's almost, why am I not doing this? And our answer is, I don't know. Let's do it together. And that's why we're here, is to help people through that. So we've gone along. The initial question, Mike, is what is IBC? And we've just talked for I don't know how long, 20 minutes, let's say. The initial answer, and you've said this before in our podcast, the initial answer takes 10 seconds to provide. And then it's the discussion of how it works amongst what people already know or what they don't know. It's a combination of both. But that explanation is what takes the longest time. The infinite banking concept is a cash flow system that monetizes money you're already going to spend. That's it. That's what this does. You're going to spend it. My favorite question is, what return are you getting on your grocery bill? I just kind of take it down a little bit further. People think I'm dumb. Well, I'm going to buy apples. I'm going to eat the apples. That money's gone. In IBC, it's the same thing Mike's saying, just on a bigger scale with cars. You're going to spend the money. This monetizes that money you're going to spend. And you go do with it what you were going to anyway. And yet you continue to accrue a guaranteed internal rate of return. And over time, it is not a get rich quick scheme, but over time, all of the money you spend is back in your family. This is legacy wealth building. That doesn't include the death benefit that's involved in this. Like there's so many benefits, but I'm going down a rabbit trail, Mike. The goal is to talk about what is IBC.
Yeah,
IBC.
I like it. I get the same thing. So when people ask me, like, so what do you do? People are all the time asking, when you meet people, like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a school teacher. I'm a whatever. I'm like, oh, awesome. Like, well, what do you do? And I mean, I basically say I help families set up a cash flow system to build wealth for financial legacy, something like that. 30 seconds. So I say I can tell you what I do in 30 seconds. I can tell you why you need an IBC policy, an IBC system. I can tell you in 30 seconds. Why would I do that? Because, like you said, because I can help you recapture the money you're already spending. Well, I'm not asking you to spend any more. Reduce your standard of living and save and eat macaroni and cheese instead of eating steak or whatever. I'm not asking you to change your lifestyle whatsoever, but we're going to recover wealth that's leaving your family over time. We're going to have that turned around and come back to your family. That's what I do. So I can explain that in less than a minute. And I get the same thing from everyone. Like, wow, what? Wait, what? How does that work? Then I say, okay, I would love to sit down and explain to you how that works, but that's more of a 3-hour conversation than a 3-minute conversation. I mean, we spent whatever. What are we in here? 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
30 minutes, yeah.
Talking about why everyone needs an IBC system. Everyone needs it because, again, you can recapture the money. You're doing the same thing you're already doing. We're just helping you recover that over time. And you recover a little more and more it doesn't just show up in 20 years. I mean, you start getting benefits of that in year 1 and year 2. And when you're 10 years through the process, you got about half the money you spent recovered. But by the time you get to about that 20 year, that money has now surpassed all the money you've spent. So it's very easy to explain to someone why you and your family needs an IBC system. As far as explaining how it actually works and the mechanics of that, that takes that takes a long time, and it takes kind of multiple times. Everyone comes to this kind of from the same perspective. Is like, man, I'm just having a really hard time wrapping my mind around this. Happens to everyone. It's a very different concept, but it's not a new concept, and it's not something strange that, I've never, again, all of the major banks have been doing this for decades. All of the Fortune 500 companies have been doing this for decades. This is something that the elite, the financial corporations of the world have been doing. I mean, again, for decades. They just haven't brought it to the you and me level. Whereas Nelson Nash, the pioneer of the IBC, the infinite banking concept, kind of brought it to the you and me level. So we're able to help people take advantage of that and implement that concept into their family and start recovering money that otherwise is flowing away from your family and gone forever.
What I'm hearing you say is that two guys that just genuinely want to help people out, they should start a podcast. So that 3 hour conversation can be done in 30 to 40 minute snippets. That's what I'm hearing you say. So maybe someone should look into that. And I
Did
say
we
that
ever discuss
facetiously.
the whole, like, how this podcast started? Was that in the first one as well?
I don't know. Maybe that, yeah, it started because I kept bugging you. Because Mike, and you have a heart to get this out. The podcast, I don't know. I kind of had to twist your arm a little bit, and because you're nice to me, you agreed to it. But I think that is the goal, is to do the 3 hour, 4 hour conversation in 30 minute snippets that can be listened to, on the car ride to work, and just start ruminating and having that ideas and thoughts go through your head of how IBC does fit into your life. It's not a matter of if, it does. And we're here to help with that. So I think we've kind of gone through what we wanted to, Mike. We are running out of time here for our 40 minutes. But
Yeah, let me throw in one other thing. So, I mean, if
sure.
you're ready, we've laid out today. I've used. I mean, you want to throw a number out there that's apples to apples to apples when we talk about option one, option two, or option three. So it doesn't matter. There's going to be people that say, "Well, that's a $50,000." I don't drive a $50,000 vehicle. I drive a $10,000 used vehicle. Okay, it's the same concept. Or I drive a G wagon, or I drive a Mercedes, or I drive a. It doesn't even have to be a vehicle. It's, well, I pay property taxes every year, and they're $8,000. Or I go on vacation every year and I spend $4,000. I take my family to, every summer we go. It doesn't matter what it is. It's pick something that you're spending every year, whether it's, I mean, everyone is paying for trucks or paying for groceries or paying taxes or pay whatever. So don't be so stuck on the, well, this is $50,000. The example they use, it doesn't apply to me. Whatever your example is and whatever that amount is, trust me, it applies to you. And we can sit down and we can map out, like, okay, this is what you're doing. This is the amount you're spending every year, every month, whatever. And let's lay it out just like we laid out the truck. If you continue doing this, you can continue paying your taxes every year for 20 years. This is where you're going to be. And at the end of that 20 years, you're going to have zero. And you're going to pay X amount in taxes, property taxes, whatever, over that 20-year period. We can show you how to implement an IBC system and make those same payments without increasing the amount. And over that 20-year period, those results are going to blow you away. Guaranteed. It's a contract. It's backed up by law. It's not up to Dow does this and the S&P does that. This is a guaranteed system. Takes time. It's not an immediate gratification system. It's a long-term visionary system, but it works. It's guaranteed to work. And I think I know people are amazed when you sit down and lay it out. Let's put it on a spreadsheet. Let's put it down on paper. And when you look at those options, where however you're doing it now, you implement an IBC system and it's going to be way better.
Well, that you brought up an idea. Maybe we can explore this. throwing out ideas on as we're doing a podcast. But I talked to a gentleman. The idea is, can we give maybe some examples of how people are using it? I talked to a gentleman this week that they're looking to purchase a new home out of investments, but to run it through a policy first, capture that money, and then go buy the house. That's that first one. Someone who wants to run their mortgage through, talk with them. Um, Someone who owns a gym, a car business. So anything that you're going to spend money on works in this system. So I don't know. Maybe that's an idea that we can hash out later. But I think people may be interested, Mike, that listen, how are other people using this? So let's leave it at that. If you would like to hear that, leave a comment. If you maybe notice something different in the version 2 of what is IBC, throw something in the comment. If you're watching on YouTube and Mike looks extra handsome today, throw it in the comments. We'll show it to his wife. Say, hey,
Right.
doing a good job with Mike, keeping him in line. So, no, I don't, are you laughing? I can't even hear you. Hopefully you are. But thank you for joining us today. Again, the goal was to talk about what is IBC, just to rehash some concepts we've already just talked about. So, this is a newer version of that topic. If you want to send this out to someone who hasn't heard of IBC, this would be a great opportunity to do so. So it is the foundational, it's the crux, it's what needs to be known to even journey down the path of joining in on a policy. So send it to someone, send it to, I think I shared, my wife was sharing it with her hairdresser. She just went on a trip. People on the airplane, she's probably our biggest advocate. I know Tanya, Mike's wife, does the same thing. She's always talking to people about it. But share it with whomever you can, whomever you want. And if they want to reach out, our social media stuff's down there. Email is dave@familybankingsolutions.com. Mike's is mike@familybankingsolutions.com. Our phone number is 507-205-2284. Get a hold of us. We'd be happy to help how we can. Anything for the good of the cause, Mike, before we sign off? All right.
Good to go. You did a great job.
Always good seeing your face, Michael Stevens.
You too, buddy.
All right, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.